Canada has officially fallen into tyranny. Now, in response to the recent protests by truckers to win freedoms back, the Canadian government has quadrupled down on its anti-freedom stance, and they've enacted a never-before-used Emergencies Act that grants the government unprecedented power, and it actually suspends the Charter of Rights for Canadian citizens. And all this is made possible by one thing and one thing only: government monopoly on money. Ready? Let's dive in. Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister in Canada, and he recently enacted a never-before-used act called the Emergencies Act in Canada, and it is questionable whether or not this is even legal. There are 4 detailed things that it says this is allowed to be used for: espionage, foreign clandestine coup, a serious act of violence, or covert acts intended to overthrow by violence. In fact, it explicitly excludes using it for protest or dissent. And before 2 years ago, this is something that you may have expected from an underdeveloped nation that's really far away on the other side of the world. Not something you would expect from a major Western nation. But now it's almost unsurprising given how much things have changed over the last couple of years, which is why I decided to make a change as well. For a moment, I'd like to tell you about something new that I've started, and if you're uninterested, you want to continue with the topic of the video, just skip forward. I've got chapter markers below. Now, you may have noticed that there are certain words and phrases that I just do not say on this channel. There are certain topics that I will not cover. This is not because I don't want to talk about these things, not because I don't want to cover these subjects. It's because, as you probably know, censorship has escalated on major platforms lately. So because of this, I've started a community on a platform called Locals. For those of you who don't know, Locals is a membership-based community that is anti-censorship. So first of all, don't worry, nothing is changing with my content here on YouTube. I'm not decreasing my frequency of videos or my content, anything like that. Nothing is changing here. But there are some topics that I would have liked to cover here that I've just over the last couple of years decided to skip, and I no longer want to do that. So I'm going to be using Locals to do that and more. So you're probably wondering at this point, well, what happens if Locals changes their mind about their anti-censorship stance? Because most big tech platforms didn't start out the way they are today. Well, the nice thing is that it's designed from the ground up to be resistant to this. So on YouTube, if they cancel my channel, I have no way of reaching out to you, telling you, hey, I'm over here on this platform now, anything like that. But on Locals, they've designed it where they are not the owners of the data. So if they make a change and I don't like it, I can leave and I can take you with me. So it's basically the platform, if you're not familiar, it's like YouTube mixed with Discord, mixed with a podcast platform and live streams, all in one, and Patreon all in one. So if you're interested in the additional content I'll be creating over there on Locals, it'll be more raw, less edited, and there will be no topics that I will be shying away from. And I would love to see you there. I've got them linked in the description below. Back to Canada. With the new Emergency Act put in place, it grants the government with unprecedented powers. Number one, it basically suspends the Charter of Rights, their version of the Bill of Rights. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how is this possible? Number one, why would anybody go along with it? And then number two, why would anybody enforce it? And that is the question, because that's where you get to the root of what this problem actually is. The issue is the monopoly on violence, which rests on the foundation of the monopoly on money. The government has the power to seize assets in any financial account, stop and reverse any transactions they deem necessary, freeze the assets of anyone suspected of even donating to anyone associated with these recent protests in Canada. So you might be shocked, and I hope you are, by this level of totalitarian control. But if you live in the United States, you probably shouldn't be surprised at this level of control, because we've been living under these exact same emergency rules now for 2 decades, and here it's just called the Patriot Act. The government has the power to freeze and seize assets of anyone suspected to be connected to terrorism, which, by the way, carries a pretty vague and broad definition. Now, right now, there are many crypto enthusiasts and politicians and lobbyists who are outraged by the KYC, the Know Your Customer laws and regulations that are now being enforced on many crypto platforms. Guess what? Your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts have been doing this for decades, and nobody has batted an eye. And if you think for a moment that the application of this power can't expand or pivot to suit any political interest. You have your head in the sand and you pay no attention to history. Systems designed in this way are destined for collapse. And that's why Warren Buffett has always said that if you're going to invest in a company, invest in a company that has a system in place that if an idiot is in charge, they can still thrive, because someday an idiot will be in charge. Other people have taken this and applied this to political systems and said the best political system, this is from Naval Ravikant on Twitter, he said the best political system is one that you can hand over to your enemy, and your enemy can run for 10 years and the system still works and still thrives. And if the system succeeding depends on the goodness and the morality of the person in charge, it is destined for failure, because someday somebody will be in charge who will use it for their own political gain. And it all comes back to the monopoly on money, because that's what gives them the power to continue transferring purchasing power to those that do their bidding, those that enforce their will, and the monopoly on money allows that expansion and the transfer of that purchasing power to be almost unlimited. Further, it comes down to competing systems of money being illegal. And so people are forced into using the government money, regardless of the fact that it's at the government's discretion whether or not you get to keep your purchasing power or have access to it. And in a world where money makes up half of everybody's lives, everything that you do, the other side of that transaction is money. The very fact that the government has monopoly on half of everybody's lives means that at any moment they can use that power for their own agenda. So what to do about it? Number one, save in assets that they can't control. Wouldn't it be nice if there were a payments network that allowed you to transfer purchasing power to somebody else without going through a bank, without receiving permission from the government, a transaction that couldn't be reversed? Oh yeah, that's called Bitcoin. Wouldn't it be nice if you could store your purchasing power in an indestructible metal, an element that has been valuable for thousands of years, and store it in private vaults in any country on Earth? Oh yeah, that's gold. All of my recommended services for creating a safety net outside of government control are linked in the description below. And depending on the country that you live in, and depending on whether the culture has been trending towards one of security or one of freedom, you may want to get on this sooner rather than later. Because as Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And I would add, will end up inevitably losing both. Finally, I will be speaking at an event in Dallas on March 5th. I would love to see you there. If you're able to join, the sign-up link is in the description below. As always, really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.